Hey guys, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and it is Sunday, so we are doing breaches of the week, and we have a ton this week. It has been going nuts. As I've mentioned before, it's the perfect time to declare a breach because everybody's looking at the coronavirus, COVID-19, and so now you just fly under the radar, except here. And I'd like to thank the following people that linked me, tagged me, sent me messages on a lot of these data breaches. Guys, it's always appreciated. And that would be Chris Fallon, Jason Dance, and David Walker. And if I missed your name, please let me know. I'm more than happy to include it in next week's data breach. And if you've got something for me, please send it to me, and I'm happy to give you a shout out as well. With that, let's move on and let's get started. And let's start with everybody's favorite data breach target, Facebook. Apparently, threat actors are selling over 267 million Facebook profiles for around £500 or $623 US on dark websites and hacker forums. Now, none of these records include passwords. They do contain information that could allow an attacker to perform a spear phishing or SMS text message attack, basically to steal credentials from these users. Last month, security researcher Bob Diachenko discovered this basically in an open Elasticsearch database that contained over these 267 million records, being mostly from the United States. Many of these records have things like full name, phone number, and unique Facebook ID. So heads up, basically Facebook members of the United States were all in a massive database that's being sold on the dark web. Probably one of many. Moving on, let's talk about SeaChange International. Now, this is a multinational supplier of video delivery software solutions, and they were a victim of ransomware. Now, the ransomware gang published images of the data they claimed to have been stolen before encrypting the systems at the company. This news basically is being confirmed by experts at the data breach notification service under the breach. Now, SeaChange's customers include major organizations like the BBC, Cablevision, Verizon, Dish, Cox, and DirecTV. So they probably have a lot of data, and we're going to see where this goes. Moving on, we're talking about the city of Torrance, California. Last month, basically, they said that none of their roughly 145,000 residents' personal data was compromised last month when the city was hit by a cyber attack that disabled municipal websites and online payment services. I actually believe I reported on that one. But this was revealed to be incorrect this past week because the publication and sale of as much as 200 gigabytes of city data was reported by basically the dark web. It's in the dark web, and it was done by a ransomware actor. Now, the attackers behind the ransomware variant known as Doppelpayer have started leaking documents from the city of Torrance on both publicly accessible websites and dark web forums in the hopes of collecting a bounty from the city of 100 Bitcoin, or roughly $700,000 US. This is obviously, from the city of Torrance. Now, a sample of these files revealed basically individuals' names, dates of birth, social security numbers, and other personally identifiable information, as well as 181 pages of financial transactions that occurred in the 2019 fiscal year for the city. So heads up, residents of Torrance, California, your government got your data breached. Moving on, we are talking about 3 undisclosed British private equity firms. Now, attackers managed to trick these 3 firms into wire transferring a total of over $1.3 million to bank accounts that the criminals had access to, basically. And these executives from these equity firms thought they were closing investment deals with startups. Now, this attack group, dubbed the Florentine Banker, is basically a cybercrime gang that is behind this attack, apparently, and to quote the researchers, seems to have honed their techniques over multiple attacks from the last several years of activity and has proven to be a resourceful adversary, quickly adapting new situations. And that's very true. We see a lot of these groups spin up fake domains that look almost exactly like the originals. They start to break in and understand the language of how to speak to organizations, so they don't sound like they're in broken English if it's in English, that kind of thing. And then they launch sophisticated attacks after gathering this intelligence. So that's obviously a very serious issue, and hopefully they'll get that money reimbursed. Moving along, we are talking about North Rhine-Westphalia, or NRW. This is a province of Germany. They lost tens of millions of euros following a phishing operation. And this gets actually kind of interesting. The cyber criminals basically could commit this fraud because the NRW government failed to deploy a secure website for distributing coronavirus financial aid money. So the attackers created copies of the official website that the NRW Ministry of Economic Affairs had set up for dispersing these funds to carry out the attack. The criminals first distributed fake links using phishing email campaigns and then collected details from citizens. Then they used those details to file requests for government aid on the official website on behalf of these real citizens. However, they would replace the original bank details with bank account numbers where the funds were supposed to be deposited. So basically, they would rip off your information, send it to the German government here or this province government, and the government would basically pay out, thinking they were paying you. And they've lost tens of millions of euros through that. So that is absolutely ridiculous. Excuse me. Moving on, we're going to be talking about Aptoide. Now, this is a third-party Android store, and basically an Android app store. Stolen records of 20 million users of this app store have been published online, basically by an attacker who claims to have an additional 19 million more. Excuse me. Now, Aptoide claims that they have a global user database of 150 million users and 1 million apps that they have in their store. Obviously, this is a third-party store, and this is why the cybersecurity community generally doesn't recommend using third-party app stores for Android. Google Play is a bit Wild West compared to, let's say, Apple, that also has the ability to get infected apps passed through it. But it's actually filtered and owned by the owner of Android itself, which is Google. And so it is generally considered more secure than third-party stores, where it is way more Wild West. So there you go. If you use Aptoide, heads up to you. Moving on, let's talk about Nintendo, the massive gaming giant, They had over 160,000 accounts that got hit due to attackers abusing a legacy login system. Now, here's what's going on. Over the past few weeks, Nintendo gamers have been reporting suspicious activity on their accounts, and according to complaints, unauthorized access was basically happening to these accounts, and people, or rather criminals, were abusing payment cards connected to these accounts to buy digital goods on Nintendo's online store, such as V-Bucks, which is the in-game currency for Fortnite. Now, in a statement this past Friday, a couple of days ago, Nintendo said that the attackers had been abusing its NNID, or Nintendo Network ID, legacy login system since the beginning of April to hack into accounts. NNID was primarily used for the Nintendo 3DS handheld system and the Wii U console. Both now have been discontinued, and this is actually different than a Nintendo account, which is used for the Nintendo Switch, which was released in 2017. An NNID can be linked to your Nintendo account and be used as a login option. So if the attackers were able to access a linked NNID, they could also get access to your Nintendo account, and then from there they'd have access to payment methods like PayPal or credit cards necessary for making in-game purchases. So bottom line, if you have a Nintendo account or an NNID account, go change your passwords. You've probably been compromised. Moving on, we're going to be talking about Beaumont Health. Now, this is a network of 8 hospitals throughout the Detroit, Michigan area. And they said on a letter this past Friday that an unauthorized third party accessed names, birth dates, social security numbers, and medical conditions for about 112,000 patients. The attackers were also able to access bank account data and driver's license numbers from some of those affected, and that is according to the Detroit Free Press. This was an email phishing attack, so if you use Beaumont Health in Detroit, heads up to you. Moving on, we're going to stay in Michigan and talk about Michigan State University. They have been informed by their e-commerce vendor, Volusion, which provides online payment processing to thousands of businesses across the country, of a nationwide data breach. Now, the university said that it was informed of this data breach, and to quote, impacted less than 300 customers who process credit card payments for goods through shop.msu.edu. between September 7th of last year and October 8th of 2019 as well. So if you go shopping for Michigan State University gear at their official store between September and October of last year, heads up, you were probably compromised. Moving on, we're going to be talking about the Silicon Valley Community Foundation. They sent a data breach notification, and this was posted on April 20th to the Vermont government's website, which is where I found it when I went looking. And apparently a phishing attack happened to them on August 23rd of 2018, and so that's a couple years ago almost, and 3 email accounts of theirs were compromised. But in December of 2019, so a few months ago, they became aware of one of their mailboxes that was originally compromised that had access to a larger shared mailbox that was used to collect scholarship information and also contained personally identifiable information. And so there's new notification says that names, addresses, photos, passport photo and number, driver's license info, school records, and more were compromised. So heads up if you have applied for a scholarship through the Silicon Valley Community Foundation or have given them your personal identifiable information for some reason. Moving on, let's talk about Baymont Health in Florida. Now, they basically put out a notice on their website, which is where I'm getting this from, regarding a potential inappropriate disclosure of personal information due to a tornado that struck a building. That's right, this data breach is due to a tornado. Now, apparently they use a company called STAT or STAT Informatics Solutions that is based out of Lebanon, Tennessee, and basically this building got hit on March 3rd of 2020. Now, STAT is based in Wisconsin and provides various services to various health outfits, one of which is Baymont Health, which basically is using them. So basically, the tornado hit the building, and the documents that they were scanning for Baymont Health or printing basically flew everywhere, which means if I'm in the area and papers land on my yard due to a tornado, I now have basically HIPAA-compliant information. Kind of hard to plan for that one. Now, moving on, we're going to be talking about Primo Hoagies. This is a South Jersey chain of sandwich shops, and they're warning customers of a months long data breach. Now, the breach allowed unauthorized parties to access payment information for customers between July 15th of 2019 and February 18th of this year. The affected payment card information included names, addresses, payment card numbers, expiration dates, and security codes. So if you're getting your hoagie on at Primo Hoagies, heads up to you, you might have been affected. Moving on, we're going to be talking about another company, and we keep going, called Tax2 eFile. Apparently, this is a US-based e-filing service for your taxes, and they suffered a data breach. Now, in terms of the information, this breach has exposed the following information: 39,601 social security numbers, 21,975 EIN numbers, those are the corporate ID numbers here in the United States, 58,083 email and passwords, 20,390 U.S. bank accounts. So that's awesome. This information was apparently put on sale via an auction in the dark web, and it was actually purchased and sold to an unknown third party. And so here we are. So if you've used Tax2 eFile in your life for your U.S. taxes, you may have been affected, and that's not good. Moving on, let's talk about Webkinz. Now, parents out there, you may know this name because they are a Canadian-based online game that is basically specifically geared towards children, and they experienced a data breach, leaking over 23 million usernames and passwords from this children's platform. So please change these now. This is obviously a platform for your kids. I don't have much more information on that now, but I'll keep you guys up to date, but heads up to you. Moving on, we are talking about KinoMap. This apparently is a fitness technology app, and approximately 40 gig worth of information belonging to users of KinoMap. Basically, this is a service that creates immersive workout videos for people on rowing and cycling machines as well as treadmills, was discovered by security researchers in March. Now, this enormous amount of data amounted to almost 42 million records and affected the platform's entire user base, including people from a number of countries across the United Kingdom, Europe, and the United States. The data was discovered by researchers at VPN Mentor as part of a web mapping project on March 16th, and public access to this database was closed on April 12th. So your data was out there, and if you use KinoMap, heads up to you. Moving on, we're going to be talking about the COVID-19 Alert app. This is an app obviously designed to work with governments and alerting, and here we go, because they are now part of Breaches of the Week. Now, this was developed in the Netherlands, and they suffered a data breach this past week when their source code was published online for the purpose of government shortlisting. Now, this rushed action resulted in about 200 names, email addresses, and hashed user passwords from another project being exposed. Now, basically, as we are in a rush to get things done here in this pandemic, I think we need to take some time and slow down and actually verify how we are, let's say, changing or using our technology, especially when we see people shifting to work from home. A lot of businesses have cut some corners trying to get people up online as fast as they can and have cybersecurity as an afterthought, and that's getting us into trouble. We've actually seen that, and so that's a very serious issue. And finally, let's talk about the Small Business Administration, which is a part of the U.S. government. Almost 8,000 business owners who applied for a loan from the Small Business Administration may have had their personal information exposed to other applicants, and the SBA, the Small Business Administration, admitted this past Tuesday. Now, the breach relates to a long-standing SBA program called Economic Injury Disaster Loans. Now, this has traditionally been used to aid owners whose businesses have been disrupted by hurricanes, tornadoes, other kinds of disasters, but it was recently expanded by Congress in the $2.2 trillion CARES Act due to the coronavirus. In addition to these loans, the law authorizes grants of up to $10,000 that don't need to be paid back. Now, this program is separate from the larger Paycheck Protection Program that was also part of the CARES Act that goes out to citizens of the United States. The SBA says that the PPP, the Payment Protection Program, Paycheck Protection Program applicants were not affected by this breach. And according to a Trump administration official, and I quote, the official said that in order to access other business owners' information, small business applicants must have been in the loan application portal. If the user attempted to hit the page back button, he or she may have seen information that belonged to another business owner, not their own. Now, the SBA says it discovered this flaw on March 25th and notified the affected users. One of those victims basically copy and pasted that notification this past Friday, of the notification that she got. The letter stated that personally identifiable information, including social security numbers, addresses, dates of birth, and financial data, may have been exposed. The letter said that as of last week, there was no sign of the data being misused, which again is the default that everything says. If we're going through breach and we can't find evidence that it's been dumped onto the dark web, we don't have evidence, it's been misused. And here we are. So heads up, this is obviously a very tricky issue. The last two bits of data breaches here relating directly to the coronavirus, as small businesses across the United States are rushing to apply for loans and grants from the Small Business Administration. And obviously the apps that governments are using in conjunction with scientists to try to track this. These are things we really need to make sure that are secure, because if somebody's able to inject some malicious code into this app and it gets rushed through Apple's App Store and Google Play, we might be infecting millions and millions of phones out of the Netherlands or wherever this app is being used. So that is a very serious issue. And those are your breaches of the week. I feel these videos are getting longer every Sunday, but now you are informed of what the regular media isn't telling you, because here I am, probably one of 3 people looking at this specifically. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe and stay online. Thanks, guys.